Well, greetings. I'm Licking County Commissioner Tim Bubb. I'm with my friend Bill Weaver, and we're just chatting today a little bit about things. This is February of 2025, and Bill, you had a unique opportunity during the latter part of your school career and in your life to have association with a guy named Dave Longaberger and the Longaberger Basket Company. And for people who are new to Licking County, maybe they've heard about Longaberger Baskets, but that's sort of a little bit of history now. But at the time, in the 80s and 90s around here and into the early part of the new century, it was a very, very big deal for a lot of people in Licking County. A lot of people had worked there. And I just want to get your reflections on that a little bit. First of all, how did you had some associations with Longaberger early on in the summers, and then you went with the company for a while. How did you get into that?
Before I address that, I laughed because he was notorious for saying, you know what, around here, 25% of your day should be fun.
Should be fun.
And when I heard that and him directly say that to his whole employee base, I
put everybody at ease.
Could be a good place for me.
Yeah, yeah, and it was.
It was because, so 28 years I'm at Toboso Elementary School, and Dave Longaberger moved 1.5 miles from my school.
Mm-hmm. And maybe we should tell people who Dave Longaberger was, because we know, and we assume everyone watching knows, but you talked about him being your neighbor. Who was Dave Longaberger?
Wow. Dave Longaberger was a guy that could expand a business of basket making from this to this to this.
Yeah.
He
to a national company.
Oh my, yes. Yeah, we had a basket in the Rose Parade.
Mm-hmm.
It was people were coming. I mean, like this. They would be coming on buses from Baltimore and Kansas, and then like this and this. And my first, because he was so close, I decided to go down and welcome him to Toboso, Ohio.
And Dave was a local guy who lived in the region.
Yep.
Didn't even, I don't think, finish high school.
Correct.
And but he was an entrepreneur, a hardworking man, and he, you know, I've always likened him to a shooting star. You know, all of a sudden he took the Longaberger Basket Making Company from a small enterprise down in Dresden to big time.
Mm-hmm.
And there's just no other way to look at it.
Oh, big time is what it became.
Yeah. What was your involvement?
My first involvement was when besides being the principal of the school there, I was sort of the welcome to whoever moved into the area.
Welcome wagon.
That's what it was.
Yeah.
When I went down there and pulled in to the log cabin that he'd moved into, he wasn't there,
Mm-hmm.
but there was a guy waiting there, and I said, you know what? I just thought I'd come down and welcome him to the community. And oh, by the way, we're putting in a brick sculpted sign out front of that, and I know you guys do that in the company. Maybe he could give me some help with that. And he says, well, he's not here right now, but when he gets here, I'll let you know that what you've asked.
Sure.
And that's what happened. Not Dave himself, but the same guy
Mm-hmm.
came back, and he says, you mentioned wanting to put something out there in front of the school, from the brick company. Show me what you want. And so as I was showing him, I was saying, well, I was hoping for petunias and mulch.
Yeah.
Well, he goes away, comes back with a drawing thing on the ground in front, Toboso Elementary School.
A monument almost.
It was a monument,
Uh-huh.
for goodness sake. And it was done in a way, I was like hoping for petunias and mulch. Instead, he pulled the flagpole up from over here,
Mm-hmm.
moved it over, put it in front of the brick sculpted sign, did this, that, and the other thing, and I met him.
Yeah.
And when I met him, I said, well, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And I know somebody there at the company that keeps thinking I should be part of it, so if you
Sure.
got something going, let me know.
Yeah.
So I started getting on the bus loads of women that would come from it.
Well, you loved it. Come
It
on.
didn't seem like that.
You know, it's interesting you talk about the brick sculpture, and we have one in front of the county administration building that came from Bowerston, and obviously the artist, Mr. Moran there,
Mhm.
but really those Licking Valley sculptures were some of the early ones that were put up, and those are monuments in our community, but they're also a tribute to the artist who was local and to Bowerston.
Right.
But you got that done, but you started a relationship with Dave, and at some point you went with the company full time for a while then, right?
Right. I did actually, while I was still principal, because I could do it in the summertime.
Sure.
And then they started doing activities, and I started getting involved in activities there for folks that came in. And the next thing I get from Dave Longaberger, you know what, Bill? What I need you to do, I just got one of the largest barns in Ohio.
Yeah.
Would you get the history on that?
Yeah. Sounds like the Crawford Barn story to me.
One of the largest barns.
For those of us that grew up around Newark, the Crawford Barn used to set up off Sharon Valley Road, and a century ago was a huge deal with a huge horse business, imported horses to this country, and the Crawfords, and they built a signature barn. I'm not talking about a little barn. I'm talking about something big. And of all things, he bought it and moved it, right?
That's correct. But before, he wanted me to find out the history of the barn.
Sure. And what'd you find out?
I found out in the attic of the house.
Mm-hmm.
It was like King Tut's tomb. There were so many
The bills of sale for horses, the importing and all that.
All that in things that came over from Europe
sure.
and everything else. And
It was a huge business at the time, around the turn of the century.
And so I said to Dave, here's the history of that barn.
Yeah.
50,000 horses went through that barn between 1895 and 1915.
That was a big business.
This is Dave. He said, well, then go get some horses. So I went to by then, we had restaurants and so on, and I asked.
Dresden had really grown.
Oh my, yes.
Yeah.
And I said, who around here knows about draft horses? And they pointed to the guy that was the head of food. And I went over there and asked him that question, and he went, her. And she had draft horses.
Mm-hmm.
And so I found the quick story is I ended up calling out there into Iowa where he was, and he says, well, he's not here. He's actually in Columbus, Ohio.
Really?
Okay, I do believe in Providence, but he was there, and I went from that.
He was in the neighborhood.
Exactly.
And we're talking about Belgians, Clydesdales, the big horses, the big work horses that really made America before we had powered tractors.
Yep.
And that company imported them, dealt with them, and sold them all over. And Crawford Barn was ground zero for that.
Yep.
And so Dave knew the history, and you bought horses, and what happened?
Well, we bought both. The person I'm watching all these horses being brought in and sold, and I happen to be standing next to a guy, and I'm looking at him, and I'm looking at his horses, and he said, man, what a beautiful pair of horses you got. I'm 6'5", and that horse is rearing right here.
They're big horses.
He said, I said, I work for the Longaberger Company, and we're looking for a pair of horses like you've got there. And he says, I live about 7 miles from the homestead, and I know who Dave Longaberger is. And I said, pull those horses out of line, because I'm buying your horses and I'm hiring you.
Whoa.
That was Dave Longaberger. I didn't have to pick up the phone. I didn't have to go anything, but I just knew that's what he would want. That
would be the deal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Of course, they were with us for years.
Yeah, yeah. Well, the barn didn't stay in Newark.
No.
No, it didn't. It got properly dismantled, and as a Newark resident, I hate to see it lost. But it also was kind of out of place where it was in what was developing as a residential area. It wasn't a farm anymore. Right. So talk about the relocation to Dresden and what kind of happened there.
I went up to the house where Colonel Crawford's great-grandson, he had it, and we initiated we want to move this. And who could Dave Longaberger get? Oh my gosh, the biggest horse knowing people that came in and literally took it down. Every shingle.
Marked the pieces, but dismantled one of those big, beautiful show barns that were made of huge timbers. They took it apart piece by piece and took it to Dresden and reconstructed it down there.
That's correct. And a big gathering.
Beautifully.
Big gathering.
Yeah.
People everywhere coming in and looking at the horses and looking at this going up, being put up with horses.
Yeah.
Imagine that.
Imagine
He
that.
was so good at putting this with that. I just know people will love
Had a
it.
19th century feel to it, didn't it?
Plus we had here in Newark, the Heisey.
Uh-huh.
And so we sold Heisey at this thing.
Sure.
And so you had two of the biggest collectors, Heisey and Longaberger.
And huge in terms of the economics of the area. Heisey Glass at one time, it was a huge deal here till the 1950s, and
Yeah.
the Longaberger Company. And you know, that dedication of the Crawford Barn drew people from far and wide. And I recall the day when you had that dedication down there, and of course it had almost regional, if not national media. And I think you were almost overwhelmed with the turnout or the response, because it seems to me like traffic was backed up clear to Newark.
That's correct.
Trying to get to Dresden
Including
to
Dave,
see that.
Including Dave, who lived down 668.
He was stuck too, wasn't he?
Not for long, because we just called the right person that flew in to pick
You
him
brought
up.
the chopper in.
I'm waiting. I'm ahead of the parade,
Yeah.
and I'm waiting for Dave, and I'm looking at my watch,
Uh-oh.
and here he comes.
Yeah.
Comes over to me. I said, "You're in this right here. It's one of the finest carriages in Ohio, and go." And that's how that thing started.
Well, it was a huge deal, and really that whole retail complex down at Dresden, with the barn being sort of one of the signature pieces, was a big deal for about 10 years. Really, that was almost a national bus tour destination.
It was
Yeah,
60, 70 buses
yeah.
would pull.
Yeah, so much economic development, so much money that came through, and to see it fade, I mean, we need to put a cap on this story. And again, for people who didn't know the history of Longaberger or knew Dave, the sad thing is that, you know, like I said, shooting star, and it's up here, and it's like the things that Longaberger did, the big conventions in Columbus, the events here, that's what people talked about. And then it started to fade, and of course we lost Dave. He faded. He died of cancer.
Yes, he did.
And you know, he had his kids succeeded him in the business, but the business never was quite. I don't think was never quite the same after Dave. And that I'd be curious your observation on that.
Okay, this is where I might come to tears, but
Well, but tell it.
he would be in front of the huge audience we have at the big basket.
Yeah.
And he would be up there he's still talking about 25% of your day should be fun. Just because I'm kind of failing around here, that doesn't mean we shouldn't do
That's right.
what we think is
He got a big heart, didn't he?
huge heart.
Yeah, he was a philanthropic person. He cared about the people that worked for him, and cared about the people around him, and the company made a fabulous amount of money. But I don't think for Dave, I don't think it was just about the money. I think it was the experience and doing things for the community.
And the people.
Yeah,
He'd walk around, he'd walk among the troops, and he knew their names, and he knew they happened to have.
knew their family stories.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
And he would go to them. That's what made him who he was.
Well, we're remembering Dave, and I know you're emotional about it, and we all remember him because he. And one thing I think for this video, I think it should be stated: if you come to downtown Newark and you go to the Midland Theater. And the Midland Theater is a really a regional, if not national, attraction, certainly for events. The Midland Theater would not have been purchased, properly restored, and what it is today, had not Dave Longaberger put his energy, and then later he passed away during that period.
Yeah.
His kids finished it.
Yeah.
And the money that the Baskets did things in this community that he should be remembered for, because the Midland Theater is a physical testament to Longaberger Basket Company and the millions he put in that to restore it. That probably wouldn't have happened without him.
He brought the people in who restored
Yes.
that, and I was part
Yeah.
in that. And he'd get them from Frazeysburg.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
Skilled craftsmen.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's important that people remember that when you go in the Midland Theater, when the theater was almost needing to be demolished,
Yeah.
the fact that they took it apart and put it back together again, just as good, if not better, than it was in the 1920s, and it exists today, again, is a tribute to you folks, the people that work there, and to Dave Longaberger. And sadly, he passed too early, but I think we all enjoyed watching the ride, and the community benefited from it.
oh yeah, big time. And having the first gathering of the Longaberger people in.
Yeah, yeah. Well, a big part of Bill Weaver's life was that contact with his neighbors. It's amazing. If you talk about you made a welcome wagon trip, the next thing you know, you're up to your, you know what, and alligators doing these projects for Dave. And you know, you were part of that shooting star that everyone enjoyed for a while. And so thank you for sharing your thoughts. And I know that was, I think, very insightful as to the kind of person Dave Longaberger was, and had been pretty exciting to have a chance to work for him.
It was an honor.
And you had some fun, right?
Oh. Are you having your time of fun? Come on. Your
Yeah.
department, is that?
Well, we have some fun here too. That's all right. Yeah. We're talking to Bill Weaver. We're just talking a little bit about some of his reminiscences, and it's a lot of fun to talk about these things, and it's important to remember our history as well. I'm County Commissioner Tim Bubb.